You're about to watch Karen Eber Davis talk at the Gulf Coast CEO Forum on the topic, the life-changing magic of effective business nonprofit partnerships.
One client I work with is an insurance provider who does property insurance. He was receiving tons of requests. Everyone, his employees were putting the requests in from their children's schools. The friends of the children's schoolmates were bringing requests in. And he really felt like a cash machine. What we did is a transition program to announce to people that we'd be doing something different in the future. And we began to focus instead on property needs of nonprofits. And so by developing a small one-page grant request, nonprofits could request funding to improve their properties. Now, how many of you sat on a board in a nonprofit before? Are you familiar with how hard it is to get money to fix basic things like broken doors, needs for locks, security lights, those kinds of things? Yeah, I see some nodding in agreement. So this is a way for him to solve a community need in a place where he was good at and his staff was good at. And so they had the ability to look at what was needed and say, no, you don't want to buy a $200 lock. We're going to give you $500 to do it right. So that kind of extra value he was able to provide, not by just saying yes to everything, but to find a way to give back in an area where he had expertise. So this is my mindset of what we might be doing here. You may, as a business, decide to give anonymously. And that's that first column. And that is the idea that you don't want anyone to know your name. And that's fine. You may internally know that that's just a decision you can make, but you're also missing out on some benefits. The next column is what I call standard sponsorships, or standard. You give some money, you give some resources, and the nonprofit gains and you gain some. What I'm looking for is opportunities with a sponsorship on steroids. How do we get to the next level? How do we create something that says, I'm so excited about this? Like the insurance group. I'm excited to do this because I know it makes a difference in what I'm good at. How do we get into that level? And then there's this last column that most of us need to think about avoiding. That is when you say, aha, I can use nonprofits as a tool to make my business grow. The nonprofit still may get resources and funding, but basically it's about me. That I'm not promoting, but that's out there. And some of us have fear that we could be perceived as that. Mostly when businesses are generous, they're seen as smart business owners, and they're seen as generous, and the community really appreciates your generosity. It was a December morning, and my family and I were on a ferry, and we were going to go to spend a day in Africa. To prepare for that, we had called and read and gone through the tour guides that said, really, you need a tour guide for Africa. And we had found the name of a man named Aziz. And he was available, but there was a problem. He could not meet us at the ferry. But no problem, ma'am. I will send a friend with a sign. Your name will be Davis. It'll be on the sign. You'll get off the ferry, and he will bring you to me, and we'll start the tour. That sounded like a good plan. Aziz was highly recommended. And so we got to the dock and on the ferry, and ahead we could see about 50 men, some in Arab clothing, some in Western clothing, and they were obviously there to help anyone coming off the dock, to provide them drinks, to provide them jewelry, tour buses, hotel signs, airport signs, anything you wanted when you got off that dock. And so we got off the dock with the family, kind of looking around, amazed to be in Africa. And there we saw all these people, but no sign. And as we stood, with a look that you don't want to have when you get off on the boat in Africa, we have no idea what we're doing now. My son, who we were there on a graduate program with him, said, we're looking for Aziz. And suddenly, every man in the place had a name change. I'm Aziz. Me. I'm Aziz. It's me. And we would probably still be there today, except for one of the men insisted that my husband come with him, and pulled up on his cell phone, and then we had Aziz on the phone. We knew we had made the right connection. So sometimes when it comes to opportunities to work with nonprofits, we feel like we are in a sea of Azizes. There are so many opportunities out there, so many ways that there are causes that we could be part of. There's 1.5 million nonprofits in the United States, 125,000 in Florida. And then in Sarasota County, there's 2,000 to 3,000. I'm moving to Roxy because Roxy is part of something called the Giving Partner. And in that, there are 450 nonprofits from this area who are interested enough in obtaining donations and support from you that they have filled out extensive information about themselves and gone through a process that can be from 10 hours to much longer if they haven't done some of the pieces that that process requires. A great tool. So we have an abundance of opportunities, and we may feel like I did coming off the dock, like, no, make it stop. Or we may see abundance is really an opportunity to do something and to respond to that and to consider this a source of wealth for us. So this is going to be interactive. How many of you have seen an increase in nonprofit requests coming to you? Increase, decrease, or about the same over the last few years, okay? Increase, about the same, some, decrease, okay. So a sense of increasing. How about the quality of those requests? Have they been getting better? And quality being, boy, you'd really like to give to that cause. Like getting to your heartstrings, getting to your practical part of your life, like this makes great sense. I like the logic in it as well as the emotion. Getting more intense, about the same quality, or not so good over the last few years. Okay, I see a lot of this. Okay, what I'm seeing and what helps, and this is for you to see what your peers are seeing, so I saw a lot of about the same. What I'm seeing is there's a general growth in nonprofits, but it's also a lot of people fall out. So the sense is that. But what the quality changes that are here now and that will be coming are going to be getting more and more intense. We are getting better at collecting data about what causes you to give. The more data we have, the more careful we'll be in the requests that we make to people. So you have this wonderful opportunity, and it's going to be coming at you. So here are some background facts about what's happening. We know from research that giving provides personal benefits. Arthur C. Brooks said recently that 30 years of economic studies have shown that giving makes you more wealthy. This is not just the two things happen. It's logical that giving, people who have more give more, but it's actual thought now to be causal. That when we give, we receive more wealth in the fall of time. And the reason for that, economists believe, is that we are happier when we give. Happiness means we're more successful when we go out and meet with people and work with people. I also think when you give, you feel empowered. So what you can do to change someone's life with Shelterbox or somewhere else helps you to feel like your own stuff is pretty small. So when you look at your things in a new way. Professionally, the information about how it helps businesses who give back is not as strong. It is there. It's a positive impact of giving back and your business. If you give back, your business does better. It's not a huge thing. It's not like, oh, everybody jumps up and down, but there's a positive movement. What's happening in the research is we're getting better at asking questions. And what we're finding is when it's done really well, there's a huge potential impact to positively help your business grow and succeed. Some work coming out of Northwestern University, Kellogg School of Management at Northwestern, finds that CFOs don't like giving back as much as investors do. And I think that's a difference between short-term return and long-term return, not to pick on CFOs, Haskell. But that's there. So the perspective of right now is maybe not so great, but long-term investors see nonprofits who are giving, businesses who are giving back have extra capacity. And that capacity indicates the ability to look out into the future and do some investing. Also interesting, not only is we know it's good for us and it's good for our business, our customers expect it. 90% of people expect businesses to look at value of the business work and the community as both as equal and important. 90% of us say that we will buy a product associated with a cause versus one not associated with the cause. And then another interesting statistics. Only 10% of us believe that cause marketing is sincere. So we have this expectation that you better do it, you're a business owner, but we really don't think you're doing it for any other reason except to improve your business. As an example of this, in Sunday's paper, in the ads, Box Tops for Education, the snack that gives back. How many of us look at that and say, oh, they're doing that to sell? What is this, cereals? The third thing that I start from is I believe you currently invest. How many of you serve on a board, or your staff serves on a board, or you in some way this month have given back to a cause or a nonprofit in the community? So nearly everyone. Okay, how about either your staff or you giving money this month to a cause? Okay, also nearly everyone. So you're already doing it. Your customers expect it. It's good for your business. It's good for you. Thank you. And everything I want to say is not about that you should stop or change that, but how might we even do better than we've been doing? What's possible? How many of you are excited about what the changes you've been able to make with your business dollars in a nonprofit? You've seen some great returns and outcomes. Okay? Goodly number of hands. Related questions. In terms of your business, how many of you are excited by what you've been able to see happen in your business because of your giving back? Smaller number of hands. That's what my experience is when I talk to business owners. They feel it does something positive, but it's often vague on what it accomplishes. We know it's part of the mix of what works for us, but we don't know always what exactly it does. Paul Hoffman of South Tech shared with me that one of the things they've done in terms of nonprofit outcomes is they have worked with All Faiths Food Bank for a number of years. And what they've done is calculated the number of meals that they were able to help All Faiths Food Bank provide to the community. So an exciting level of at least getting some knowledge about what your dollars do. So that's something that's readily available if you ask the nonprofits whom you work with, what is it that my dollars do? Translate that into something meaningful to me. I want to ask you for a minute. There's some paper and there's pens on your desk. There's the brochure with this, or there's also some information that I provided you extra on the back. Jot down for a minute some of the causes you've been involved with, nonprofits causes, since the first of the year. Research has shown us that there's a number of reasons people give back. There's 5 to 8. They're pretty complex. Some of them overlap. But what I find when I work with people is it helps for people to separate why they give back into 3 buckets. The first bucket is they love the cause. I worked at a camp in New Hampshire for a number of years and was a camper there. I love the camp. If they ask me for money, if I can do it, I send them a check. I don't really care what they use it for. I trust them. I want them to be there. So I love that cause. That would be a number 1 for me on my list. Number 2 is dues. We often get involved in organizations and opportunities that we maybe don't love, but we feel it's good for us to do. Or a friend asks us to support a table because they supported a table that we loved in their organization. And those are dues. My children attended colleges, and the colleges asked us as parents to help their ranking to send donations to that school. Those were dues. And it helps my kid. I'm not necessarily in love with the organization, not the same level as the first one. And then there's the third one, the return on investment. We all, both privately and professionally, might do some giving because we're looking for a return. So for instance, when our children were small, there was when Hands-On Museum was here, we had a membership in that museum because on a hot, rainy Saturday or whatever day in August, if we were bored, we could bring the kids down and let them play and be in the museum and have a good experience. Also, if we traveled, we had reciprocal membership. We could go see other museums along the way. So that was about getting a return on investment on a personal level. On a professional level, there's groups and organizations that I belong to because I feel like it helps put my business's name out there and it gets me to meet the right people. So as you look at your list, quickly run down whether it's something you love, something you're doing for dues, or that you're looking for business return on that investment. Could be all 3, that's okay. Shared this with Tom Waters, and who's the head of Easter Seals, and he shared with me that when he did this, he thought he loved everything, but he realized that sometimes he loved the person who was asking, not necessarily the cause. So that helps to sort that out, because what is it we want? When we know what we want, then we can ask for it. So what I'm focusing on this talk today is this third bucket, this return on investment, particularly return on investment for businesses. Now, I will warn you, and the nonprofits may or may not agree with me in the room, is that most nonprofits would love you to love their cause, and that when you give anything to them, time or your money, it's out of love, period. That's what they would like. That's because they love the cause. So they want to bond with you that way. But if you say to them, no, I'm really interested in doing this as a partnership to help both of our businesses, they can get into the other bucket pretty quickly. But you got to tell them that's where you are. So for clarity on your half will help you achieve your goals. So when it comes to this ROI bucket, there are three things that most people can find in it. You could probably find other things, but these are the most common. How many of you have sponsored an event since the first of the year? Okay, a large number of you. That's the most common way that we think of improving branding, meeting new customers, growing income, growing profits, is by working with organizations to get our name out there. But there are other ways. Steve Hall shared with me that they do a lot of, like they sponsored this morning, but also what he does is he helps groups meet each other behind the scene who would make good connections. That helps them to know each other and also helps him to improve relationships with them. So another way to use this moving forward, creating relationships that help your business as well as help the community and help the nonprofit. So there's kind of triple bottom line here. Another example of this is instead of beyond sponsorship, and I share this sort of to help you stretch out what this might be in your mind, is instead of event sponsorships, which is done in a day often, there are now a movement to doing operating sponsorships. What does this mean? If you were Ronald McDonald House, you might offer an operating sponsorship for 1 week. Your business would be invited to come help serve dinner during 5 different evenings. You might have your banner on the building. You might be announced at every meeting. All kinds of opportunities that you would develop with Ronald McDonald House. Now, from the nonprofit's point of view, the return on investment, what they're receiving, events run about 50 cents on the dollar that they actually get to put back into their programs. But operating, if it's done well, is about 10 cents on the dollar. So the nonprofit has a lot more dollars that they actually can put into programs to make the community happen with operating. From the business's point of view, it helps you because who knows if the event you choose is a rainy day in Sarasota or wherever it is. So it offers you multiple opportunities depending on where you want to go to interact and have an opportunity to meet with people in that facility or whatever you arrange over time versus a one-shot deal. So that's the first thing in this return on investment bucket. The second is performance. Performance is about cutting costs by engaging current employees as well as current customers. One client I work with is an insurance provider who does property insurance. He was receiving tons of requests. Everyone, his employees were putting the requests in from their children's schools. The friends of the children's schoolmates were bringing requests in. And he really felt like a cash machine. What we did is a transition program to announce to people that we'd be doing something different in the future. And we began to focus instead on property needs of nonprofits. And so by developing a small one-page grant request, nonprofits could request funding to improve their properties. Now, how many of you sat on a board in a nonprofit before? Are you familiar with how hard it is to get money to fix basic things like broken doors, needs for locks, security lights, those kinds of things? Yeah, I see some nodding in agreement. So this is a way for him to solve a community need in a place where he was good at and his staff was good at. And so they had the ability to look at what was needed and say, no, 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 you don't want to buy a $200 lock. We're going to give you $500 to do it right. So that kind of extra value he was able to provide, not by just saying yes to everything, but to find a way to give back in an area where he had expertise. So that's performance as the second opportunity. The third thing in this return on investment bucket, we had profits, we have performance, we have improved business climate and community. This is taking that longer view and saying, what do I need? What needs to happen out in the future for me? So examples of this, Rob Lane shared with me that a number of years ago he was on with a group of new CFOs, and as you often do when you're involved in a new organization, they went around the table and they said, what it is that you want from this group? And the first person said, well, I want to know what the latest software is. And the second person said, well, I want to know what the latest rules are. And the third person said, I want to drive $10 million of expenses out of nonprofits' budgets. So this is a way to raise up where a group was going and help it not only to see about itself, but see itself in a larger community. Another example of this was Al Permon. I don't know if Al's here today. He shared with me that they thought about what would help our business, what would help our customers' businesses. And what they have decided to do is focus on programs that help parents to be at work fully mentally. So you know, for those of you who are Manatee County folks, it's start of school today. So every parent is sort of got in the back of their mind from Manatee County, how's my kid doing? Probably about now. And so they're not fully there. So by investing in nonprofits that serve children in after school and in programs that during the day, his employees can be more present at work. This also ties into the fact the same people he helps to ensure their employees can be more present at work. And he said at one point too, there's one of my employees, people we insure, has 500 employees. And to know that my employees and my customers are doing better and my employees are doing is this multiple win-win-win for the community and for the business that improves everyone's outcomes. So this is my mindset of what we might be doing here. You may, as a business, decide to give anonymously. And that's that first column. And that is the idea that you don't want anyone to know your name. And that's fine. You may internally know that that's just a decision you can make, but you're also missing out on some benefits. The next column is what I call standard sponsorships, or standard. You give some money, you give some resources, and the nonprofit gains and you gain some. What I'm looking for is opportunities with a sponsorship on steroids. How do we get to the next level? How do we create something that says, I'm so excited about this? Like the insurance group. I'm excited to do this because I know it makes a difference in what I'm good at. How do we get into that level? And then there's this last column that most of us need to think about avoiding. That is when you say, aha, I can use nonprofits as a tool to make my business grow. The nonprofits still may get resources and funding, but basically it's about me. That I'm not promoting, but that's out there, and some of us have fear that we could be perceived as that. Mostly when businesses are generous, they're seen as smart business owners, and they're seen as generous, and the community really appreciates your generosity. But there are some who go over the edge. It's always a possibility. So how do we get here? 3 things. We need good strategies. My suggestion when I work with clients and businesses to say, what are the 3 things that are challenging you? And then we look for nonprofits who can help to solve those challenges. Conceptually, this is about when the nonprofit wins, I win. When I win, the nonprofit wins. Building that kind of a relationship. Why? Because when times get tough, and they will eventually again, you're still involved. And also you have a reason to work together, because all of a sudden you're saying, well, if you do this, new thought of an idea that's never been thought of before, we can do this. Nonprofits can be extremely creative when it comes to bringing resources in the door. And so if you begin to say, let's try to solve some of our mutual problems, you have a lot of their attention and a lot of their resources helping you to stimulate your resources. So Molly Jackson shared this with me. Molly has New Balance, as other businesses in town, but she not only does sponsorship of a lot of activities, when it comes to races that involve people who would use New Balance products, she and her husband advise the nonprofits on how to do a good race. So follow the logic here. I'm a new nonprofit or a nonprofit and I want to do a race. I get Molly's advice and my race is more successful. I do it again because it worked once, I want to do it again. I have more runners, and so forth and so on. Experience of racing, getting better and better. Now, second line, look at the opportunity that Molly has to reach people about how they could use her products and the useful of them. So this goes on as more people get involved in racing, more people meet Molly, more people recognize the quality of products she sells, and the relationship continues to grow in a virtuous cycle. So that's the first thing you need is a good strategy. The second thing you need is innovation. And for this, I want to tell a story about underused assets. How many of you have heard of Trees for the Troops? Oh, okay, wow, that's unusual. Okay, Trees for the Troops is a program that started about 15 years ago. FedEx contacted the Christmas Tree Association, and they said, hey, this coming holiday, we want to give some trees for the troops. Would you help us do that? We will provide free shipping and logistics. Can you provide us some free trees? Tree Association went out to their members and they said, yes, let's do it. And so visualize this story. It's an early November day. It's snowy on your Christmas tree farm, and you have volunteers loading live trees into FedEx trucks. You also have called the media to see this story happening because it's a warm, heartfelt story and it will run. Down the road, when the trees are delivered, you're on Army bases and military bases across the country. And you, again, have a FedEx truck where the volunteers with the FedEx employees and the military personnel are unloading trees into the arms of happy families who are celebrating the holidays. Again, media opportunities. This program's a number of years old, and it represents that upper level of sponsorship on steroid I talked about, because the investment is 17,000 trees going to 60 military bases in this country. The return is let me get the numbers right here. So 17,000 trees, we keep that number in mind. In 2008, 3.4 million US households stated that the program influenced their decision to purchase a farm-grown tree. So 17,000 trees influencing 3.4 million purchase decisions. Now, FedEx is pretty private about how this impacts them, but I have heard that it allows them to keep their marketing pretty level during the holiday time. You need to be innovative, and the reason for that is because otherwise there's so much noise in the market. So looking for new opportunities. So a good strategy, what is new and different? How can you do something with underutilized assets, which in this case was Christmas trees and FedEx space in trucks as they geared up for the holidays. In terms of tactics is the third piece. So things that you need to do this well: good strategy, innovation, and good tactics. This kind of goes back to the Aziz story. What we need is a way to control all the requests coming in and a way to say what we want, to choose. We need to say how we're going to do our yeses. What is it that we're going to ask and what are we looking for? And the third thing, there's a lot we could talk about in this area. The third thing is, and I find with my clients, is we need to monitor the results. It's not only the bottom line end of it, but it's also, if we're sponsoring something, did we meet the right people? Did we meet people? Did people know our name? Have we worked with that? Have we helped people to recognize what our relationship is? I work with one client. She was giving away $90,000 of in-kind ads, and no one knew it, because it was just in a magazine, so it was unseen. So I work with her to help her go back to nonprofits and say, I want to do this as a partnership. I want this return on investment. What can you do for me? The nonprofits went, oh, okay, I get this. And they began to develop things that would help both of them to share each other's markets more. So the magic of doing effective giving back is good strategy, good tactics, and innovation. If you don't have innovation, you're noise in the community. How many of you remember CVS stopping smoking, selling cigarettes in their stores last year? Yeah, some of you. Pretty brave move, because when you look at the next quarter return on investment, the money that they lost was about what they would have sold in cigarettes. But CVS had a longer-term strategy involved, and that was to be seen as a healthcare provider. They're not just a drugstore. They're HMOs, and they have clinics, et cetera. And so it was able to move them where they wanted to go in that space. I shared that story, and someone said, well, Karen, if you were Walgreens, what would you do? And I said, choose something else, because CVS has taken that space, and there's plenty of products in a drugstore that might be something that could be discussed as something to improve the community and change. So that's without innovation. Strategy and innovation without tactics can often be a mess for you, and it can be a mess for the nonprofits. Tactics and innovation, great program, but no tie-in, no roots. Okay, I want to take your questions now. Where have you seen giving back be effective?
With our employees.
Okay.
Customer employee engagement. They've done more committed.
Okay, tell me about that. With coffee.
I was trying to light the room up for you.
Thank you. Now I'm picking on you.
It's something we ask when we're interviewing people, how they're engaged in the community. Because we want them to know that we want to know they're passionate about something before they join our organization, because we're going to ask them to be passionate. And it's something we ask in our exit interviews. You know, what did we do together to make an impact? And the emotional connection just becomes a little stronger on that. Again, they spend more time, like you said, at work at times than they do at home, and we want them to be engaged when they are there. So things that we can do to help make that transition away from home and away from their kids a little better seems to help.
So engaging employees deeply in the process is really part of your core strategy.
Yes, they help make the decisions of what we're giving to.
Okay.
Something I found in our firm, when we did it recently, we did a back-to-school collection for one of our clients in St. Pete, and it's interesting. So for a lot of my colleagues that are in a similar position that are probably going more towards the revenue that our industry can produce, we have a lot of other people that are involved in healthcare because they care about individuals and helping people. So when we can get engaged in nonprofits, I find that they find a lot of satisfaction in their job. And the amount of emails that we've had in the last week back and forth, snapping pictures of how much stuff we're collecting for these kids, it's incredible. And you can see the passion, and it's almost, it's a competition within amongst our firm. So it's pretty cool.
So an emotional connection as well as a logical, and really changing how, defining your business around that passion, both of you. Molly warned me that I'd be preaching to the choir.
We also, it's interesting.
Can you hear?
Engagement where Molly has actually engaged her employees. We have it where we do collections of donations where our teachers think the families need to do it. So now we are engaging our employees as well. Like, okay, you're coming to staff meeting, bring a can for the Meals on Wheels donation. So we are now transitioning and engaging our employees to get more involved where they think it's more for the parents. So we're not exactly where Molly's at, but we're getting there. But I like the decision-making process too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we're going to bring that up too. So we're getting them integrated into the process as well.
So some of the research says too, satisfaction at work is my work has meaning. And so you're adding that meaning for sure. It may already be there, but you're deepening it too. Yeah. And I want to make a point too, very helpful to actually give nonprofits cash if you can. Because many nonprofits have significant budgets, but they don't have undesignated cash. And which means, can you imagine trying to operate your business and something breaks on a Friday afternoon and you can't fix it because you can't figure out how to find a budget line to take it from? One of my clients in the Orlando area has a $20 million budget, and they are thrilled to get a $3,000 or $4,000 grant, because it's money that they can use to fix things that all break in our lives, but also sometimes there's a client who doesn't qualify for something of funding they have, and they need $1, they make $1 too much, and it's a way to put people in who couldn't fit otherwise.
At PNC Bank, every employee gets 40 hours for the year to get time back.
So at PNC, 40 hours a year. How many of you give your employees time, paid time? Pretty common, not totally common, but it's worthwhile doing. Has it been worthwhile?
Yes.
Yeah.
And we have a big commitment to early childhood education, and we've actually used it as team building.
Okay, so team building time to go do things together off-site, sometimes learning new skills and putting new groups together really works well. A lot of emphasis recently on hands-on activities. That for-profits want hands-on. Caution about that, that's really good, but make sure what you're doing really makes a difference, because sometimes what nonprofits get a lot of resources for are the easy things. So I know Mary Beth needs peanut butter and protein. She needs food, but she'd love to get protein from you. So finding out enough to say, what is it that really makes that critical turn? That's where you begin to get those bumps and really get changes and people excited, because the nonprofit will be very excited.
And then we also match.
Match employees' gifts, yeah. Matching programs too, common. If you don't look at the nonprofit income pie that I have my books about, there's 6 cash income streams. And the smallest one of those is business. It's the smallest source of nonprofit income. So nonprofits, if they're doing their job and they're like an average nonprofit, which doesn't exist, should be seeking these 3 sources because of the biggest ones first. Individual donations, government money, and mission to earn revenue, which means that they sell a product or service to someone and earn money for it. Those are the big ones. So nonprofits who are doing their jobs will be asking you for money, but they don't have the ability to come to this room and talk to all of you. So that's why it's important to raise your hand and say, I'm interested in your cause, let's figure out a way to partner. Then you tell them. Can you tell me one thing that stays with you as an innovative project that you like one of your, hard to pick a child, I know.
One, we've seen geckos do a certain, you buy a taco, they're going to give so much back with that. So some have done things to spike sales that have given back with that. We've seen a lot of partnerships where businesses have hosted something. Burns Court showed a movie that was in conjunction with the theme of a nonprofit on one of the big screens. So people have been so creative about ways that align their business with what the nonprofit's mission is as well. So or maybe their employees, as Molly said, they ask employees what do they care about. So we've seen that employee engagement on choosing nonprofit partnerships be very powerful.
Yes, and it also recognized too that this is a really new area. It really starts about the 1980s with the Ellis Island project with American Express, the whole cause marketing. So businesses have been giving to nonprofits forever. But this whole idea of, wow, we could do some really cool things together is a relatively new thing in the field. And that's why you see creative things like movies and geckos and doing things. And you couldn't choose one, could you? Okay, anyone else? Thank you so much. I want to share some resources with you. I have a newsletter. It's a 2-minute read. It's about this relationship between nonprofits and for-profits. You can give me your card. I also have an ebook that's 100 questions to ask before you invest in a nonprofit. Particularly helpful if you're thinking about board membership, because you'll be giving your time and money. And then also my contact information is up there in case you have a question about what we talked about today or something I went through that you'd like more information on. I want to also close by thanking you again for the giving you do. And I want to thank the nonprofits for bringing these causes and opportunity to us. And to say to you too, we live in the sea of diseases, but your opportunities are to say, what is it in the sea that is really what will float my boat? I look forward to finding out what you do with this information, and then thank you so much for what you're already doing and for being here today.
For more information, please call the number on your screen or write to the email address on your screen.